Welcome to notation worksheet number 6, the alto clef. The alto clef is also known as the C clef, and it's a special clef because it is movable. What does that mean? Well, that means that no matter where the clef is sitting, the line going through the middle of it is always middle C. So, for instance, if we move the C clef over here onto the fourth line becomes middle C. And this is actually called the tenor clef. Now, since we know that this is middle C, let's figure out the rest of the notes the same way we did for the treble clef and the bass clef. So this is C, and this is D, this is E, F, and G, A, B, C, D, and E. And we could keep going if we wanted to. Now let's do the descending notes. C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C, B, and A. And if it helps you to have a mnemonic to memorize the alto clef, all the lines are face plus G, and the spaces become good boys deserve fudge. So I just want to show you the significance of middle C. If you recall from worksheet number 3, the treble clef represents the notes that are high, and the bass clef represents the notes that are low. Now, in between, there's this imaginary line, and that is where middle C sits. And that is also where the C clef sits. So the C clef gives us a way to represent the notes that are in the middle. Now, how do you draw an alto clef? An alto clef is pretty tricky, and it's not something I'm going to attempt to do with the stylus, but it's quite acceptable to draw an alto clef like this. Just draw one thick line and one thin line, and two shapes like that, almost like a K. So again, one thick line, one thin line, and a K. Now if you really want to do a fancy one, I can attempt one here. Again, you start with a thick line, a thin line, a bit of an arrowhead here, and two backward C's. So that doesn't look too bad. Have fun practicing that one. Now that we understand the relationship between all three clefs, let's try some transposing. Transposing means taking the notes from one clef and rewriting it in a different clef. And that happens quite often in strings, where we have to transpose viola music into violin music or vice versa. So that comes in handy. Let's try transposing from the treble clef to the alto clef first. The first thing we want to do is label all the notes in the treble clef so we know what we're working with. So we have a C here, and a C there, an E, a B, a G, and a D. Next, we want to locate middle C if there is one in the treble clef, and there is right here, and rewrite that C in the alto clef right here, because we know that line is middle C, and we know that this note is also middle C in the treble clef. So now we have a reference point. The next note we need to write is an octave above the middle C. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to start with middle C and write a C an octave above that, which would be right here. Next, we have to go down from this C down to an E, and we want to check to see this relationship between middle C, and it's the line above middle C. So on the alto clef, it would be this line. So that's the next note. The next note is B here, and we can see that it's just the space right below middle C. So we'll look at our alto clef and we'll choose this space right here below middle C. The next note goes up to a G, so we'll go up to a G as well from the B, and that would make us end up right here. And lastly, we want to place our D below that G, and that would end up right here. So let's take a look at this. First of all, let's check for the shape of the melody or the notes so that we know that we have in general the right notes. So we go up and down and down and up and down. So do we have the same shape? Yes, we do. So we should be pretty good. Also, you'll notice that a line in the treble clef transposes to a line in the alto clef, and a space in the treble clef also transposes into a space in the alto clef. So let's check those. This is a line to a line, a space to a space, a line to a line, and a space to a space. So it looks like we're pretty good. Now let's try transposing from the bass clef to the alto clef. And we're going to do the same steps. First we're going to label the notes. We have C here, and that's a middle C, F, E, D, B, and G. And we're going to see if there's a middle C to use as a reference. And if there isn't, just write one in for yourself, because I find that very helpful. So that's middle C, the first note. So we rewrite that note here in the alto clef. The next note is F, which is 2 lines below middle C. So we'll do that as well in the alto clef. The next note is 1 line above middle C. So we'll do that in the alto clef as well. And then there's a D, a few lines below middle C, and that will end up down here. Next we have B, which is just below middle C, which will be here in the alto clef. And finally we have a G that's also below middle C, which will end up here. Now let's double check our shape. It kind of goes zigzag like this, and that looks pretty similar. That looks good. And we want to check for line to line and space to space. And it all checks out. And again, if the music that you're transposing doesn't have a middle C, it's really helpful to write one in just to use as a reference. And remember, transposing back from alto clef to bass clef or alto clef to treble clef is done exactly the same way.